Question 1. How did the idea for the Wonca Tree start? Well, my short answer could be, I needed just a slide to illustrate the 2004 lecture titled, Do We Still Need Family Doctors? But come to think of it, this idea must have started 20 years before that talk, right after I graduated from medical school. That was when a family doctor opened my eyes to what it means to practice family medicine in real life. Exhausted and drained by 6 years of study, I had felt an urgent need to experience the day-to-day work of a doctor, and I had the good luck to find a family doctor who had run an extended and busy family practice in the countryside all his life. He was about to retire and was looking for support. And this doctor gave me the privilege of working alongside him for several weeks and subsequently serving as his deputy for 6 months during consultation hours and frequent house calls. That family doctor opened my mind and heart for family medicine through his daily example, his careful guidance, his rich medical and social experience, his subtle humor, and his loving and respectful interaction with his patients. What a gift for life. After completing my postgraduate training in general internal medicine, I embarked on a long professional journey through several areas related to primary care, such as patient education, preventive medicine and public health, medical education and legislation. And finally, I ended up back in general practice and family medicine as Executive Director of the Swiss College of Primary Care Medicine, starting there in 2003. And that is where I first came up with the idea for the Wonca Tree. One of my first public assignments was to give a talk at a symposium at the University of Basel in autumn 2004. The talk's title, chosen by the organizers, was Do We Still Need Family Doctors? This was quite provocative and reflected the precarious situation of family doctors at the time. And this brings me back to your question. How did the idea for the Wonca Tree start? During my research, I came across the first edition of the Wonca Europe definition of general practice and family medicine, published less than 2 years before. And I was impressed. This document was a highly important work by renowned colleagues from all over Europe and an ideal blueprint to show family medicine's importance. But my problem was this definitions document counted about 10,000 words on a total of 52 pages, all letters, basically no illustrations. I scratched my head. How on earth could I present the message of this seminal work in a concise and persuasive manner? Should I select a few sentences or just keywords, make a list or do a mind map? Nothing really convinced me. I am a visually oriented person. I was looking for something more appealing, persuasive, easy to grasp at a glance. A new approach was needed, and I needed a break. The next day, my wife and I went for a hike in the nearby foothills of the Alps. And that's when inspiration struck. I saw that special tree standing strong and tall on a hill. This tree fascinated me. A tree is an organic structure, a living being, strong in full growth. Such an image is an icon, it's a symbol. And I realized this tree was ready to become a powerful symbol for something strong. Yes, the symbol for strong and growing general practice and family medicine. That was it. The Wonca Tree idea was born. The rest was work and patience, since I'm neither an artist nor a computer whiz kid. The original tree graphic from 2004 reflects the structure and hierarchy of the Wonca definitions at a glance. As the saying goes, A picture says more than 1,000 words. 6 branches, 11 leaves, 3 roots. Now comes the answer to question 2. I'll start. First, how has the Wonca tree grown and spread over time? Once the tree was born and ready in 2004, it quickly began to take root and spread. It had its world premiere in Basel, Switzerland in August 2004, where I used it to give a strong answer to my talk's question, do we still need family doctors? In the Wonca community, the tree graphic was then adopted early on. The Wonca tree had its sneak preview in Orlando, Florida already a little earlier in 2004, where a good friend of mine and council member presented it at the Wonca Council meeting. And it was first published in the Wonca World News in June 2004. In the official publications of Wonca Europe's definition of general practice and family medicine, the Wonca tree appeared since 2005 in all new editions. In Europe, the tree has been adopted over the last 20 years by most Wonca Europe member countries, from Portugal to Scandinavia and Ukraine, from Greece to Portugal, in total of at least 19 countries that I've counted. Beyond Europe, the Wonca tree graphic has found worldwide dissemination over the last 23 years. And the Wonca tree orchard, as I sometimes jokingly call it, extends now beyond Europe across all continents, possibly except Africa. This is quite overwhelming, and I must confess I have stopped counting citations and reading abstracts after 180 plus citations. Furthermore, for me it is almost unbelievable how widely such a graphic concept is taken up across so many languages, cultures, political and health systems. What I find remarkable too is that the original tree graphic needed only 2 amendments since 2004. A first amendment in 2011 introduced and stressed the important role of patient empowerment. It was inserted as a reaction to the evolving expectations toward healthcare. Doctors should explicitly take into account the needs of their patients and work with them in partnership. A second amendment in 2023 clarified on what ground, on what foundation the Wonca tree is rooted. The 3 concepts of One Health, planetary health and sustainability were now explicitly defined as the essential components of that foundation, hence the term bedrock. Both amendments, by the way, are the result of deliberations within the Wonca European Council that is in charge of keeping the Wonca definitions up to date. And the final question, why has the Wonca tree evolved and spread in the way it did? What is the secret behind all this? I think there are 2 important aspects to consider. The Wonca tree graphic was developed as a mnemonic device, as a memory aid, and as the saying goes, a picture is worth 1,000 words. And second, over time, the Wonca tree has even become a meme. As you might know, memes can be seen as, quote, cultural analogues to genes in that they self-replicate, mutate, and respond to selection pressures. So, being a meme, the Wonca tree can and very probably will further disseminate and strengthen the Wonca definitions and hence family medicine. Okay, and that's question 3. What is the Wonca tree's relevance to clinical practice, and how can it be used day to day by family medicine doctors to improve the healthcare they deliver? I see 3 aspects in this question: why, where, and how. First, why? Why is the Wonca tree relevant to clinical practice? I did design the tree as a memory aid. As an image, it is easily recalled. It's a powerful brand symbol from family medicine, and it conveys at a glance an overview of what family medicine is all about. or put simply, the Wonca Tree is a means of communication. Now, where is the Wonca Tree useful? The Wonca Tree graphic and metaphor is useful for providing a shared understanding of family medicine in several places, in day-to-day work in healthcare teams, in medical education and training at all levels, for collaborating with peers and partners in medical settings, and last but not least, in contact with the patients and their relatives and families. And moreover, the Wonca Tree is useful too for communicating with a wider target public, because this tree provides a shared frame of reference about what family medicine is and what it can do. Here I'd just like to quote what former Wonca president Igor Schwab wrote as early as 2005, a year after the introduction of the Wonca Tree. Quote, the tree, has already become a very useful instrument in negotiations with policymakers, politicians, decision makers, and with educators, unquote. And I will add with professional organizations, with the media, and hence with the public at large. And finally, how can the Wonca Tree be used by family physicians in their daily practice to improve the services they provide? I have seen multiple situations where the Wonca Tree graphic and concept can support and improve healthcare delivery in daily practice. In Germany and Switzerland, for example, I saw the Wonca Tree on a poster in the waiting area or in consultation rooms, on patient handouts, and even on the homepage of practices. Thus, the Wonca Tree graphic can help a practitioner to inform and inspire healthcare teams and collaborators, and important, to build a productive working relationship with patients. A Wonca Tree poster in the waiting area or at the reception desk is an eye-catcher and works as a policy statement. Or a Wonca poster in the consultation room can guide patient and doctor as a kind of roadmap for planning a consultation in a multi-problem situation. I will stop here, and I'm sure you can certainly think of many more uses in day-to-day clinical practice. Question 4. Can you tell us about the recent change regarding the Wonca Tree and why this is important? The most recent change was at the end of 2025. It concerns the rules for reprint permissions, and it happened on my request. Why? Well, it's a fact. People and trees get older, but trees live longer than people, and I say it with a smile, that is also true for me. Therefore, 20 years after I had created the Wonca Tree graphic and 10 years into my retirement, I felt that it was time to scale back my administrative involvement regarding reprint permissions for the copyright-protected Wonca Tree graphic. For this reason, the Wonca Europe board accepted my proposal that the procedure for granting reprint permissions be streamlined by switching for the vast majority of reprint requests to a Creative Commons licensing as used by Wikipedia, for example. Therefore, the new rules are as follows. For non-commercial use and adaptation, for example translations, the Wonca Tree is now freely licensed under the Creative Commons license BY-NC-SA. This license type is free of charge, and it no longer requires written permission for use and adaptation of the tree, provided that authorship of the graphic is acknowledged, that is, the acronym BY, use is non-commercial, NC, and all derivative works are shared under the same license SA. However, for commercial use, books, paid products, commercial publications, a written permission continues to be mandatory for use of the copyright-protected graphic, and this permission must still be requested from the Wonca Europe Secretariat. For all non-commercial users, this simplified procedure eliminates the copyright-related paperwork. For me, this brings mixed feelings. No more administrative work, but alas, also less often valuable personal contacts with colleagues from the global family doctor community. Question 5. Can you talk about an inspiring family medicine specialist? I have been fortunate to meet many inspiring family doctors in Switzerland. One of them I have already mentioned, it's Dr. S., a country doctor in a rural area who was my first and probably most important medical teacher, and that right after med school. It was he who lit my lifelong interest in family medicine. During my 6-month stint in his practice, I learned from Dr. S, through his personal and professional values and manners, what it means to practice medicine in real life. This was to shape and influence my entire professional life. And later I found all his lessons reflected in the Wonca definitions and the Wonca Tree.
Hi Charlotte, this is the audio recording for question 6. First, a preliminary note as on page 1 of my manuscript. Your original question 6 has 2 sub-questions. I added a short third sub-question on the relationship between Wonca Tree. I leave it up to you to use this or not. Now comes the answer to question part 1. Please tell us what book you are reading at the moment. I start with my answer. I have just finished reading the following book, Autocracy Incorporated, The Dictators Who Want to Run the World, written by Anne Applebaum, published in 2024 in New York by Doubleday. Anne Applebaum, a US and Polish citizen, is an award-winning historian, journalist and author of books on the history of communism, the development of civil society, governments, regimes and autocracies in Central and Eastern Europe. With her latest books on authoritarian tendencies in Europe and the US, historian Anne Applebaum investigates very topical, disturbing developments. In this current book, which is based on extensive research, she analyzes in detail the relations and networks between autocratic states and autocratic regimes in the 21st century, as they operate from America to Europe, Africa and Asia. Applebaum notes that, quote, these autocracies do not necessarily share a common ideology, but they very often collaborate to increase their economic power and control against democratic and liberal countries. Their goals are power and not seldom personal wealth. Unquote. My answer, part 2. For me, this book is highly relevant. Autocratic states and regimes exert an ever-increasing influence and pressure on global politics, global economy, the global environment. And this has an impact, indirectly or directly, on individual and global health too. Applebaum's book offers valuable insights into how autocratic regimes work and what can be done against their machinations. First, it shows me in what key areas autocracies are highly active, such as propaganda and media control, trade in weapons and technology, and money laundering. Second, it provides many examples of how autocratic governments collaborate to increase their economic power and control against democratic and liberal countries. And, last but not least, how they infiltrate, undermine and attack liberal and democratic societies in order to gain ever more economic power and personal health. And Applebaum concludes clearly and unequivocally, quote, democracies are no longer safe. The rule-based world order of yesterday is challenged, threatened, attacked by autocratic states and autocratic regimes, unquote. Applebaum calls on democracies to fundamentally reorient their policies to combat this new type of threat from autocracies, and she identifies possible ways to do so. And now comes the audio for question 6, part 3. What do the Wonca Tree and family medicine have to do with autocracies? I'll start my answer. What do the Wonca Tree and family medicine have to do with autocracies? Well, family medicine is not practiced in a vacuum, but in the real world, and we must not ignore this. Because this real world is in trouble, to say the least. We see and hear and feel this every day. Increasingly intense political and ideological conflicts, very often fueled by autocratic regimes, are leading to economic hardship, open wars, environmental degradation, biodiversity loss, and climate change. And all these threaten the eventual collapse of those systems of the earth that are supposed to ensure the health and survival of humanity. And what does that mean for family doctors? If family doctors want to secure health care and health equity for their patients, they must necessarily take into account also the overall health of the population, of the environment, of the planet as a whole. And that is exactly what the Wonca definitions of 2023 stipulate, and what the Wonca Tree graphic of 2023 visualizes as the bedrock of the Wonca Tree, namely that planetary health is part of the foundation of family medicine. Therefore, planetary health action is urgent to improve health equity and avoid the collapse of Earth systems that should sustain human health. This means general practitioners and family doctors need to extend their role and activity and self-image beyond individual and public health care to planetary health care. This may sound illusory and provocative at first, but it is of utmost importance for the future of all of us. Family doctors work for the health of people, of populations, and of the planet. And that's the end of my third answer. Thank you.